Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk and awesome rock, KTNTradio.com. And I am here with my guest tonight, who has been so gracious to come take time out of his campaign and sit down with us here at Ambush Studios here. And we are broadcasting nationwide. The candidate interviews, folks, has been an anchor of the Meat and Potato Show since its inception in 2008. Since then, we've interviewed, I've lost count, hundreds nationwide. People calling in from California, New Mexico, Arizona, Florida, Oregon, Montana, all across the nation, running for various offices, all through Massachusetts. In 2014, the Meat and Potato Show hosted the first of the quadrennial candidate symposiums. And we'll be holding another one come 2018 in August. We'll be setting up a place, we'll be announcing all of that. Candidates from all across Massachusetts come together. We always have last time we had a great audience, great advertising, great sponsors. Boston Broadside was there, Tom Duggan from Valley Patriot was there. And of course, we were there filming and broadcasting it all, and we will be doing that again this year coming in 2018. My guest tonight, Stephen Hall, and his wife of 37 years, Janet, moved to Sturbridge, and that's where they just came from, in 2006 after spending nearly 22 years raising their family in Wales, Massachusetts. So he didn't exactly move very far from Massachusetts, and Worcester County is an absolute, especially the western parts, absolutely beautiful here in the state. Stephen is a 1979 graduate of Pathfinder Regional Technical High School, and in 2004 Steve graduated from St. Joseph's College of Maine with a Baccalaureate of Science in Long-Term Care Administration. He's also the inventor and developer of two healthcare safety products, and I gotta ask him tonight what those two products are. In his leadership role as a consultant, Steve has demonstrated over and over that his foundation for success started with listening, caring, and being a strong and having a strong commitment of service to the people he serves. He will not waver from this inventive spirit and these principles of service once you elect him to Beacon Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, my great guest, Stephen Hall. Stephen, absolutely fantastic. Good to talk to you. How are you, sir?
Good to talk to you, Christopher.
Great. So what are these two products that you invented?
Well, years ago, came out around 2002 as an anti-rollback for wheelchairs. So something that was supposed to make me a multi-millionaire back then.
And? Did you?
And I did not, and that's that.
Well, what happened? Because even to this day, you're right, that doesn't exist, does it?
It does exist.
Except for the brake thing.
Not the one we made. That's not the one that exists, but no, there are automatic anti-rollbacks, but unfortunately there was another company that beat us to market beat us to the patent office by 3 months. And under those regulations at the time, that mean that they had a lot of control. So irregardless, we were kind of dead in the water.
Yeah, once they pull the patent, that's it. Now, so what about your invention? That's it? It's just shelved, or?
It was shelved.
What was the other one?
Yeah, we had a product on the market, and company, the whole deal, and pretty much had to shelve it. We had a patent, the whole deal, but it's a long story, but we weren't able to continue, unfortunately.
What was
just couldn't defend our right to stay in business.
Certainly.
And the second one is something I actually just invented, and it's a simple little device that goes on a wheelchair and prevents the user, usually an old person, an older fragile, someone with really fragile skin, from touching where the leg rests attach. So it's nothing that's going to make me a millionaire, but it's certainly something that
where the leg rests attached. It's kind of like not a bolt on, but it goes on and then you turn it and it locks in. It can be removed. But what is that? That's right. The leg goes right over that. I would imagine that would be uncomfortable. If you're in a wheelchair 24/7, that would.
Yeah, it's a real sharp area there, and certainly in the industry I'm in, that's a big issue. So this goes there, prevents the user from bumping into it. And it's one of the things where if I see a problem, I try to fix it. And like I say, this isn't going to make me rich, but we've applied for a patent on it. We've got the manufacturing starting on it.
Now, is this your? I know that you have a history in the healthcare business. tell us about you and your job, your business, how you got into it, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, you mean into the long-term care?
Sure, right, exactly.
Okay, long-term care industry. So certainly, I got into long-term care was the anti-rollback. It was one of the things where I graduated as a machinist. Mm-hmm. I had spent 25, 26 years as a machinist, had my own business at the time, and then decided to I just invented this product. My wife was a nurse at the time, and said, "Hey, we've got this problem." Knew me as someone who could solve problems, and I went out to the nursing home, and within a couple of days, I had a solution to it, and developed it, and from there, it's like, hey, we're on to something here, and so that's how I was able to get that going. From there, when it didn't take off, it was really a tough situation. It's not easy to have a business go bad on you, and it was really we hadn't done anything wrong, but we just couldn't afford to fight the legal battle. It was,
right.
And that's what the attorneys were telling us. They were saying that you've done nothing wrong. You have every right to be in business, but it's going to cost you $200,000 to $1 million to defend your right to stay in business.
And because somebody else owns the patent, you'd be beholden. I mean, they'd have a share of everything you sell.
Which is exactly what they wanted. And at the time, I didn't quite understand the control they had over us. And, mm-hmm. and certainly, some of the rules have changed since then. I like to think that some of those rules have changed because of the letters I wrote and the people at congressmen I had spoken to about the whole situation, and even the patent office. And they have since changed the regulations.
Your story isn't the first I've heard. I've had other guests on the show who are in business who, yeah, they do. When they don't get the patents in time, great ideas, great inventions, somebody else beats them to them. I had one guest years ago come on the show, and I mean, the Chinese just ended up stealing his idea, and his company went bankrupt. He was in all sorts of lawsuits. And anyway, let's move on to the campaign here, and which, because of your business, what was it that made you, being in the healthcare business, decide to run as a state senator, and have you ever been in any type of office before? Anything?
The only office I've held is I've actually been the recreation director for a small town.
What made you want to do state senate?
Well, it's one of the things where certainly as a nursing home administrator, nursing homes have become really the lifeblood of healthcare. Not to take anything away from the other areas, but nowadays, under the Affordable Care Act, people are triaged in the hospital, mm-hmm. they're stabilized, and they quickly go to a skilled nursing facility. So what's happening is there's a lot of pressure from all over the Affordable Care Act. There are things going on with the Affordable Care Act that I see that maybe the rest of the public doesn't see. And there are some unintended consequences of the regulations. And they get very complicated. I don't know how deep you want to get into them, but I'm seeing
We've covered healthcare plenty of times. Yeah, it's a maze. It's a labyrinth. I know.
I'm seeing those, and I see rationing going on. I see people not getting the treatment they need. I see the whole industry. Really, I think is a whole house of cards, and it's going to come crashing down. And we've got to do something about this. The American healthcare system, the Massachusetts healthcare system, relies on hospitals, skilled nursing, and so on and so forth. But it's really every one of those people, every one of those industries is struggling right now. 40%
of our budget here in Massachusetts, 40% Medicaid, Medicare. I call it still Romney Care because that's the generation I come from. But 40% of it, and I mean, well, of course we all know that entitlements, welfare, and our federal is taking a larger and larger chunk. Also, we have the pressure of the baby boom generation retiring, getting older. That's huge. Population-wise, that's huge. We've got almost a perfect storm. We've got a gobbledygook healthcare system in the state and federal. 40% of the budget, even more in the federal, plus the population of the baby boomers. What are we looking at? I mean, I plan on working until I pretty much drop dead, but I mean, what are we looking at in, I'm 55, at 10 years, 15 years, what are we looking at?
I don't know what we're going to have in 10 or 15 years. We need to
I'm a little
change.
scared, to be honest with you.
We need to
If we don't get out of the business of healthcare, and I'm talking federal and state,
Right.
just get back to the way. I'm sorry if I sound like an old man, folks. But I mean, I remember what it was like as a kid. You just went to see a doctor. You paid your doctor. You set up a plan. You had insurance for anything catastrophic.
Right.
But that was something you bought privately, like you would buy car insurance or life insurance.
Right. Certainly the federal government is getting between the doctor and the patient.
Yes.
And the doctors, I can tell you, are very frustrated with this. That they are mandated to say things and do things that they are not thrilled about. And they are also, it's the insurance companies making the decisions. It's the federal government making decisions and rationing the care. And yes, we've got a budget that's exploding. We've got a lot of issues, but there's a lot of things. I think if we had people from the industry looking at this and making the decisions, not the lawmakers, because the lawmakers,
because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, right. Get the
well, it's not their MOD. That's not their. It would be like asking me to. Well, Chris, we're going to put you in charge of auto repair. It's like, okay, why?
Exactly.
I mean, why?
Or make the regulations regarding auto.
Right. Exactly.
It should be the
clue.
people. And again, you don't want the fox guarding the hen house,
Sure.
but we in healthcare know what's wrong. We know the problems. It's an antiquated system. The regulations are antiquated, and it's got to be revamped. And this can work, and the free market can work. For example, the continuum. As I said, they triage in a hospital. Everything's going down the hill. But what used to be taken care of in a skilled nursing facility is now being taken care of in assisted living or even at home. It's amazing what's being done at home. So the free market system's working and the competition's working. I hear a lot of things about the single payer. Single payer is the best way to go. I'm telling you, the free market's the way to go.
The free market is. Hello, Venezuela. Hello, Canada, England. France. Oh, yes, it's great. It's free healthcare. Yes, I mean, obviously, if you're catastrophically injured all of a sudden, you can go into the emergency room. But if you need a hip replacement, you're waiting 2-3 years. If you've got cancer, well, you're just going to die. I'm sorry, because you got to wait 2-3 years. I mean, that's what we're looking at with social. That's the rationing.
Right. But with free market healthcare, people are innovating. These companies are innovating. It's the competition that's what's making healthcare better.
We've already seen it too with the baby that just died in England, for crying out loud. I'm sorry, I forgot the name already. But that's an example of rationing.
They were begging to come to the U.S.
Right.
Right, which says.
And that was another bureaucratic nightmare. Somebody should have just signed a paper or done something.
Right.
Some altruistic billionaire somewhere in the country or whatever just should have just flown a plane over and brought them over here. It was horrible. But again, that's the you had said. You're not sure how deep you want to get into healthcare, folks. Cass Sunstein was one of the authors behind part of the Obamacare. Was the guy who came up with what is known as the life values curve. And the life values curve is basically a giant bell curve. And it's set up in different strata where wherever you are in this bell, either coming into life, rising up through the bell to the top of the bell where you're at your peak of your life, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s. And then after that it starts going down, you're on the back side of the bell. And where you are on this bell curve determines your place in the rationing of the healthcare. This is what happened with the baby in England. Because the baby was just a baby, it was in that very low end of the bell curve just coming in. There was no justification in a socialized medicine world to rationalize the expenditure that would have been put forth to try to save the baby's life. And even though the child had a terminal disease anyway, any prudent parent, any prudent individual knows that you do whatever you can to make life as best as possible for that child. But because of that life values curve thing, and that's something we'll explain on another show anyway, but look it up. Look up the life values curve, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Again, let's get into the campaign. One of the big things we have here is Ann Goby is a big sanctuary state and a big sanctuary city type of candidate. And again, we were just talking about the costs of healthcare. This is another thing. I mean, you have certain individuals, I'm trying to be very politically correct here, which is not my MOD on this show here. There are certain individuals who come into this state and they're not supposed to be here, I've got to say it, here in Worcester, I see it in the various healthcare facilities, and when I go to the doctor, there's an increase of people that you know aren't supposed to be here that are clogging up the system and driving up the costs. And the more that we have state senators and state representatives demanding that Massachusetts be a sanctuary state, this is going to exacerbate this problem, isn't it? I'd like to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, it's huge. Certainly, immigration built this country. Built the state.
But be careful. I'm not talking about immigration. It's a common mistake. Everybody uses the word immigration. We're not talking about immigrants.
Exactly.
You know what
I'm
talking
talking about illegal immigrants.
Illegal.
That's different because I was.
That's the problem we have.
I had a debate with somebody as I'm out campaigning to say we need these people. That we need them out here working. These people aren't the people holding the good jobs because for many of the good jobs, for example, in healthcare, go back to healthcare again. You've got to do the E-Verify, which you check to make sure they're a legal citizen. You've got to do a query check. You've got to do a lot of background checks. These people aren't passing the background checks.
Well, they don't have any ID. They don't have any.
So what are they doing? I suspect that they're out there doing many, or at least some. I got to be careful what I say here. But I suspect some aren't doing good things out there.
Criminal activity. MS-13's sorry folks, it's true. I work for a real estate guy. We have had various problems with various El Salvadoran gangs and a property that I won't get into it, but it exists. It exists. And I'm kind of there on the front lines and we have to deal with it. No, you're absolutely correct about that. And when you have this influx, and it's a numbers game, when you have this influx of people that are coming in here illegally, the common term is they're doing the jobs Americans won't do. Well, folks, do you wonder why there are so many inner city kids running around and they don't have jobs? It's because somebody else is doing the jobs that probably you and I wouldn't do, but these are great jobs for a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid looking for something for the summer, maybe something part-time.
Yeah, and I would argue it's keeping the rates down too. Certainly, if we're concerned about
Right.
minimum wage and all that kind of stuff, and if there wasn't such an influx of people doing those menial tasks, people that are really desperate for work,
It drives down the wages.
the cost.
Right,
So
right.
certainly, so for anyone, and especially the Democrat who currently holds a seat, to support illegal immigration is I don't understand it. I can't comprehend it, and it's not good for them. It's not good for cost. I'm worried about the crime.
Yeah, you know, I hear a lot of people talking about how having illegals here supports the Democrat voter base. Well, first of all, folks, these people aren't allowed to vote because they're here illegally. So I'm trying to understand that argument as to why this concept that illegals help the Democrat voter base, how does that help them if they're not allowed to vote in the first place? I mean, maybe you can shed some light. You're running as a Republican, so, I mean, they're obviously not going to be voting Republican, so.
Definitely not. And you know, there's talk of them being Democratic voters someday. But I think it's just we need to do it right. There's nothing wrong with immigration. Immigrants built this country. But it's really about let's do it right. There's the talk of the DACA kids, and certainly that's another that's another issue. But there's a right way of doing it.
But a lot of them aren't kids anymore.
Yeah, no, they're not kids. But so that those people should be turning themselves in and looking. We need to be thoughtful of their situation. Look at each person individually and see if there's a way of making them legal and making them good. If they're already good citizens, then we should be able to figure it out. But I think it's also hurting the people who are waiting in line to get here.
Exactly. It always does. You know, Steve makes a great point there, and one of the things I had mentioned on the show several weeks ago, and Steve just reminded me of it, is yes, a lot of them, the DACA thing came when they were children. Now they're not children anymore. Now listen, folks, when young man turns 18, you got to sign up for selective service. When you turn, you got to get your Social Security card. You get your driver's license. You get your house in order. You get all your IDs. You get everything. You buy that first car. You get all this other stuff, and you start entering adult life. One of the things I had mentioned weeks ago on the show was that what have these people been doing? I mean, all this time, when they finally turned 18, okay, great, they might have signed up for college or whatever, or gone off to a job, but did they say to themselves one morning while eating cornflakes, say, you know what, I should probably go down to the immigration office and get the proper paperwork so I don't have any problems later on in life, because technically I'm here illegally, but I'm covered under DACA, and it's supposed to expire in March of 2018, so maybe I ought to get my act together. You have to wonder why this is becoming such a big, questionable issue when you should just be getting your act together. That's just my opinion. I want to move on here. You want to reduce taxes, fees, tolls. Massachusetts, I mean, we rival California with taxes, fees, and tolls. I mean, it's unbelievable here. And I guess there's another ballot initiative going around to roll back the income tax back to 5%. That was, I think it was like 2000 or something that the referendum already passed. Here it is that many years later, and obviously it's not being rolled back to 5%. What's your plan? What do you want to do?
Well, certainly, I think, as I said, fees and taxes are the same thing. They're just disguising. So when they can't raise the taxes, they're raising the fees, they're raising the tolls, or there's talk of putting more toll booths up.
We're having a Tea Party event coming up on the 24th, I think it is, in October, and one of the things we're going to be talking about is how the new rates for auto inspections, commercial inspections of vehicles. It's a huge booklet now. It takes 2-3 hours, and at $90 an hour that you're paying some mechanic to look over your truck or your car. Again, this just skyrockets. Everything in the state skyrocket.
Yeah, and they've got to stop spending, and I think that's the whole thing. When we look at, I'm going to jump back to healthcare just for a second, because there's a lot of waste going on. There's a lot of things going on, and if you get people that really know what they're doing, get in there, there can be a lot of cuts. But you can't be cutting from up here where you don't know what's going on. You need to be in the weeds, understanding what's going on, and make those cuts, and we can figure it out. But as far as this is hurting all the poor people, this is hurting the middle class. That's the whole key. Is every single tax that we have, and we're taxed on almost everything except clothing and food. And I don't care where you go, what we're doing is we're making it difficult for people to make a living. We're making it difficult for people to get up and get off the welfare rolls, and that's why welfare is so high, because it doesn't make any sense. You can't afford to get off the welfare roll.
You can't afford to get off the welfare roll, and it's not even really a lazy thing. It is quite literally a socioeconomic thing, meaning that you enter into the job market, you're entering at a low rate, and it's very hard to make ends meet on that $10, $11 an hour, especially if we were just talking about healthcare, your employer's going to cut you down to under 40 hours or under 32 hours so that they don't have to pay that. So how are you making a living working only 30 hours at $11 an hour, plus the high taxes and the fees, and then all of a sudden you've got to get your car inspected, and instead of it being $30, it's $100, and for somebody earning $11 an hour working 30 hours a week, that $100 becomes a choice between putting food on the table for the children or driving around with an expired inspection sticker. And one of the things I had said in a blog piece that I wrote some time ago was that you actually are creating, don't take this the wrong way, folks, you're actually creating criminals inadvertently. Because things are so expensive, that single mother can't afford that inspection sticker. What happens? She gets pulled over, $200 fine, maybe the car gets towed. Why? Because not only can she not afford a $100 inspection sticker, she can't afford the rise in auto insurance rate. So maybe last month it's like, well, my rent was due and I had to put a radiator in, or the kid was sick, so I had to pay that. My insurance lapsed. You're creating I don't mean criminals like murderers and rapers.
They can't afford to follow the law.
So they end up.
Right. We've got to stop this attack on the poor, the middle class, the people. We've got to figure out some way of make it more acceptable, making it easier to get off the welfare rolls. I'll even reverse what you're talking about, working fewer hours. And certainly under the Affordable Care Act, I could go into real detail about how you're better off with less than 50 employees. It saves everybody money, which is a real shame. You've got to cut back. Just had to do that where I'm working, which is a real shame. Under 40 eligible employees. I'm sorry, 50 eligible employees. But we literally and I'm talking for years now, I've had people saying, I can't pick up any more hours because if I pick up any more hours, I'm going to lose my government benefits. There's got to be some sort of transition there. That's going to save us money in the long run. So we've got this huge healthcare shortage of the lower income people, but it's the government creating a system where they can't afford to get off because they're going to lose their benefit, and it's that gap between not working and being on benefits to actually earning a job. And we've got to figure out how to bridge that gap, and I'm sure you can do some sort of gradual system, and in the end it'll save money on the Medicaid rolls.
This brings us into the other parts on your website, and folks, you can go to his website. It's electsteve.org. It's quite simple. www.electsteve.org. It's an absolutely great website that he's put together for his campaign. And again, we almost pretty much covered two of the other points here on his issues page about cutting the government spending, which is just completely out of control. And here's the other one, though, just decrease government intrusion into our lives. This is something that has really, it's a topic of conversation all the time on this show, and it's in my monologues all of the time. I look at somebody like Maura Healey. I mean, every other week, I swear to God, she's suing Donald Trump or she's suing somebody for something, and she's out to, before it was with, she wanted all the paperwork from ExxonMobil and all these other, climate deniers is the term she used. Other people who just, questioned anthropogenic climate change. So she sued them, she wanted all their paperwork, suing ExxonMobil. Now she's suing all the gun owners, she wants all the guns. And this is part of the intrusion. I mean, there's certain times, these people just don't know when to mind their own business.
I think they've forgotten that they're there to serve us. And I think I
don't even think that has even entered their head, even when they were running.
I don't think it has, and it's really a shame because I think that's what, go back to what I talked about, my experience as management. It's all about, my success has always been about serving the people. The folks that work for me know what's wrong, they know how to fix it, you just have to give them the tools to do it. The people in Beacon Hill have decided somehow that we're there to serve them, that they have all the answers. That's not the case. They don't have all the answers. And certainly, this whole thing, whether it's the guns, whether it's the business, the climate change, it's putting such a burden on the middle class, the lower middle class, and the poor.
It brings us back to taxes and fees. Everything is carbon footprint taxes,
How can we be doing?
Who comes up with this crap?
If they're for the poor, if they're for the people,
why are you
how on earth can you give them a carbon footprint tax? It's not even the science hasn't even been proven yet.
And trust me, if you're on welfare or you're below the poverty line, you've probably got a very small carbon footprint because you can't afford one. It's what it is. So, it's unbelievable here. Promote individual choice. Pro-life?
I am pro-life. Yeah. I am pro-life. But
I believe it's nobody's business.
Yeah. I think it's
not government's business. It's not anybody. It's not the pro-lifers. It's not the pro-choicers. It's nobody's.
That is
no matter what sign you wave. I don't care. It's none of your business.
That is my choice, pro-life, and that's the way I've always lived my life. But I that's water over the bridge. That's gone. Nothing's going to change there.
Sure.
I don't. The law of the land is the law of the land, and I respect the law of the land. And so I put that down there because that's where I stand, so you get to know who I am. And I think when I get there, and as I'm campaigning, I want you to know who I am. Nothing worse than listening to a politician, and they go through a whole speech, and you go, wow, that was really good, but what did they say? That's not me. I want you to know where I am, what I say.
And that doesn't fly on the show either. It's like, no. The questions are very cogent here. Getting to individual choice. But individual choice, folks, is a lot bigger than just whether you're pro-life or pro-choice in that. Individual choice has everything to do with your individuality and how you pursue your life and how you want to get on with your life. And it brings us back to what was on the website also about decreased government intrusion into our lives. You decrease government intrusion, people have more choices in their lives, have better paths and better value systems to go by, and they end up, well, rising tide lifts all boats, and this is what ends up happening. It's all the people, because they have much more freedom to determine their own path into the future. Believe it or not, folks, a lot of people will make the proper decision. Go ahead.
Well, again, the government intrusion, whether it's the First Amendment, this whole politically correct mood that we're in, is a real shame. Certainly, if I can take a sidetrack, but
go right ahead.
But certainly the whole political climate right now is just sad. The children are watching as we're all
Watch yourself in there.
as we're all fighting here. The children are watching us. It's okay to have a debate. But I mean, to hate our president, to do what they're doing to our president, it doesn't matter. That you got to respect the office of the presidency, and we're not doing that anymore. I think that's a real shame.
I think it was you and I who we were talking. When I heard this on Rush Limbaugh, was that young people today see this happening, this schism in our politics, in this total polarization in our media. And in their generation seems to think that this is how it's supposed to be. You and I have the benefit of gray hair and hindsight. So we know that there was a different time. We all knew the news to a certain point was skewed. We all knew to a certain point that it was sensationalized. But at least there was some modicum of objectivity there that we could glean the facts out of. That is completely non-existent now. Everything, you're right, everything. Hate the president, everything's polarized, Antifa. And the young people think, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, right?
Exactly. And you go back to Maura Healey, our Attorney General. It's hateful speech. It's hateful speech about the gun owners. It's just not right. It's the law of the land. The Constitution is an important document, and it's certainly something that we should not be messing around with, because I think that's when you start to break away the fabric of this country, that's when we're in a whole lot of issue. But there's a Fourth Amendment where illegal search.
Securing your papers in person, right?
Yeah, but yet that seems to be going awry in Massachusetts. With I'll give you a small example, and I won't go into too much detail. But they're now, for off-road vehicles, and I'm also a motorcyclist as well. For off-road vehicles now, you have to have a recreation sticker for anything you take off-road. And currently, they're after the snowmobiles, the motorcycles, and the four-wheeler ATVs, those kind of things. But even on your own piece of property, you have to pay your fee to the government to be able to ride that on your own piece of property. In order to plow your driveway in the snow, you're supposed to have that sticker. And I'm hearing from constituents that the environmental police are, and again, the environmental police are simply following the laws that are lawmakers.
Environmental police shouldn't exist. We already have police. They're called police.
We have police. But, I mean, talk about an intrusion to go on your piece of property, go into